to my computer. So we're doing that now. So Steve, the floor is yours. Tell us about your adventures with contesting.
Okay, well, hi all. Just in case you don't know, I'm Steve, G1YYB from Hereford, and I contest obviously for the Hereford Club, mostly on VHF and UHF, but I am getting into HF as well. This is kind of basically how I got started into this contesting lark. And I'll just apologise now for the images in the first few slides, because they're very small images of scans from old-fashioned reel cameras where you have to take the film in to be developed. And also apologies in advance for the operating, because I much prefer using Minos to PowerPoint when I get on with this. So presumably you can see the first slide at the moment.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yes.
Okay, so the very first contest I did back in 1990 was the PW contest, and PWQRP with a friend of mine called Kevin G1YYB, who sadly is recently silent key actually. And that picture is our first ever contest set up, and that's actually IO82 Lima Bravo, which you may have heard on the air once or twice, but not actually where I go now. It's a little bit further up across the field, because it was several centimeters higher, and we thought that was important. And so we got a 19 element Met and 40-foot Army masting, and that was our first ever go. Back then we were logging on a piece of square paper per QSO, which is our sort of system, and we pre-numbered them with the serial number on, and wrote the call sign and information on them, and then put them in a different pile. So we'd be careful that when we had the doors open, because back then summer was warm and it could blow away. So that was our first ever go. I think there was about 115 entries in that year, back when PW and all the contests were quite well supported. And as you can see, we came 17th after our first ever go. I weren't too unhappy about that. Can you see my mouse cursor?
Yeah, we can.
Yes.
That G4ILI portable, you might recognise that call sign. That's Grant from the club, who beat us by 2 places. And a few other stations there. I can recognise some of the call signs, and that kind of got us into it. You can see the trailer there, little 64 trailer, carrying all the sections of this mast. It's 4-foot sections, and more for the gin, or the falling derrick if we're going to be pedantic, but I still use gin. And yeah, that was our intro, and that kind of got us into doing the PW more often. We missed 1991, not sure why. And you can see by the call sign we've moved to the Black Mountains now to get higher up, and we're doing better. The Mansfield contest group at that time they were quite good. They were using 4x19s and things like that. We came third. Lots of contests going in between the 92 and 93, which cover in later slides. But in 93, that was our good year in this era, when we actually changed to a different site in Wales. That's Black Nixon, that contest site, where some of the Wave and then Hereford still use, or have used more recently than this. The beauty of that site then, it was 360 degrees and there was no trees. The trees were about 8 foot tall, and we used to be able to get 2 caravans and 100 foot of pole, that's 60 foot for the main mast and 40 foot for the gym pole, all laid out in a line. And now you can barely park a Fiesta in there. It's all overgrown trees. came third in that, first in that year, my first ever win, basically single operating on that one actually. We used to do the WAB contest then as well. They were very popular in these times. They were as busy as the RSGB contests in PW pretty much. I was doing the WAB QRP that year on 2 meters, and it was absolutely really windy. I looked out the window, saw the guy ropes were slack, and I leapt up, sprinted out, but by the time I reached the guy ropes, the 2x90 element mets had already speared the ground, and everything was totaled. There was an hour left in the contest, but fortunately I'd done enough to win that one still. And then obviously we didn't do quite so well in 95 or 96. We're still in the top 5, so not too bad. So that's probably why I've got quite an affinity with the practical wireless low power contest. First ever one. Oh, there's John said to me, oh, there, I just noticed on the bottom of that one. Back in the days when call signs you recognise now, we used to do the QRP stuff. So we were also doing the RSGB, and this is the first March 144 432 contest that we did. As you can see, this is taken on a Friday. Setting up in t-shirts. Beautiful weather up in the Black Mountains. But by 6 p.m. on this day, there's about 1 millimeter of ice frozen on the windscreens, and it was quite darky. This is the mast going up. So we've got a 19 element met there, and one of those 88 element J-beam things. I never did rate that thing. We never did any good on 77s. It was always rubbish. You can see we've got snow hanging from the winter. And this is our operating tent, which is a holiday frame tent. And believe you me, it was cold and that for the entire weekend. Saturday morning looked like this. And snowing, and it didn't stop until Sunday morning. I have never been so cold in my life. When the wind blew, the snow was blowing up. The snowflakes were literally going onto the operating tent, and it was absolutely freezing. I don't think I've ever been this cold since. Yeah, so that's probably one of the reasons why I don't really mind going out in all weathers, because it's kind of how I started, and it's kind of normal. Although this was cold, and I don't put up with that cold these days. I've got a heater. And this was our high-tech operating station back then. I think that's my ICOM 260E. I think Kev had 751E, the transverter or something. 100 watts, I think, possibly on each band, not sure. And that was the only source of heating, a 2 kilowatt electric fire, which basically kept what was touching it slightly warm, and the rest, everything else was cold. Absolutely freezing, as I said. And we had to synchronize calling. So our first ever go at 2 bands at once. We didn't have any voice gears back then. It was all speaking. And I couldn't listen to other people and Kevin calling and vice versa. So we had to synchronize CQing, and whoever got an answer, the other one just waited for him to finish. It was definitely an experience. And you can actually see our little pile. This is after the contest. You can see our little pile of QSO cards bundled up. That must be the 2 meters. Because the 77 didn't look that thick, that's for sure. We didn't do very many. I think the best we ever had in a 24-hour contest in March was probably about 400. And this is when it was busy. So, yeah, it was cold. Interesting or slightly humorous memory from this. That kilowatt fan heater was run off a 5 amp extension cable coming off the journey. And one of our co-ops, he wasn't licensed, he was just a helper. He gathered up all of the spare mains cable and tucked it inside his jumper to try and extract any heat that was possibly developing in the mains cable. I'm actually not even joking. That's an actual God's honest truth. It was absolutely freezing. Yes. The mountains in March are quite parky. After that, we got this army tent, which was a bit of a beast. It literally filled up a 6x4 trailer on its own. Took 2 people to carry the tent peg bag, but it was sturdy. The frame tent you saw in the previous slide that actually got destroyed in a 6-meter contest, 6-meter trophy, I think it was. This is a homemade 6-element Yagi that I made back then. We were doing a 6-meter contest, and it was absolutely blowing a gale. Kevin VDF was about 6'5", 6'7", ex-bodybuilder, and he was a really big bloke. And him and the other 2 guys were holding the tent down with their backs to the frame while I was operating, and they were just being chucked around like rag dolls. So I grabbed the radio, chucked it in the car, and if the others set the tent up while I carried on operating, because the show must go on. Got some best to try and win. The army tent was a much stronger job, and much more cozier as well. This mast used to be put up the same way as in the previous slide, with a fallen derrick, and we were taking this down the one time, and it became a fallen mast. I was stood underneath the fore line of this mast. Somebody then taken off the wrong die rope, the one that connects the mast to the gin pole. And I heard a shout, looked round, this mast coming down at me at fairly high speed, and I managed to catch it and not bend my aerial, which I was quite pleased about. So that was a bit of a close shave. Someone speaking? Oh, someone's on. So we were doing this is a trophy. Yeah, this is a trophy picture. But we before that we did May contest back then. It was quite bigger. You can see in the results. This is the days of the Northern Lights. For people who've been around for a while, even longer than me. That's Dave, of course. ASR. Northern Lights were a huge group. They used to put up massive arrays and win everything. And some big groups up there. We actually came 4th out of all these big guns with our little 219s and a single 2CX 350. We had on the Sunday morning we had an absolutely amazing opening to Germany. Luckily, I was operating. I did the first shift, and it was absolutely mental. I loved it. It was, QRZ the Delta Kilo pilot. Okay, QRZ the Delta Kilo 4 pilot. Okay, the Delta Kilo 4 Lima. And it was absolutely mental. You see, we've got 1,027 cruisers. That must be after the adjudication. So that was a good call. I think we should give the adjudicator a UBN on the call sign. I don't think we were Victor Delta Foxtrot Portable. Notice Frank G1YYB getting a mention there. He's been doing it for absolutely years. He was our ODX probably from day one. He was normally we didn't get that many in abroad in the normal contest. So good old Frank. Been working in for absolutely donkey's years. Always good. You see we've moved up to caravans now. That was quite luxurious. Gas cooking, gas heat. One for operating, one for cooking. In case you're wondering what I'm doing here, this is trophy. And we put the mast up and we were meant to be putting a G5RV up, and Sid, who's still a member of the Hereford Club, I can't remember his full name, is G0. He was going to do some HF. Well, obviously, me and Kevin couldn't do that. And we forgot to put the pulley rope up to pull a G5RV up. So after I stood around talking on it about it for a while and deciding there was no way I was going to put that mast back in, I said, "Oh, I shouldn't have to put the rope in my teeth." And he said, "No, you can't do that. It won't hold your weight." I said, "Yes, it will." Small conflabs. And the second picture is me saying, "I told you so." And but I will be honest and say that when I gave my friend my camera to take the photos, I did tell him to make sure that if this mast does fall down when I'm shooting up it, make sure you get the photos. But guy ropes, you can't go wrong with guy ropes.
Steve, one thing, can you talk a bit nearer the mic because it kind of fades in and out a little bit?
Sorry.
Yeah, that's better. Yeah.
I never get that complaint when I'm contesting. That's for sure. I'm known as a shouter, especially when we have the multi off. Everyone's telling me to shut up. Sorry about that. Okay. Yeah, so we had quite a few contests up in the Black Mountains. It was basically a full-time job. As you know, there's a lot of contests. And there was WAB, QRO, low power. It was quite busy back then. And Kev moved away, and I didn't go contesting for a while. Hard to do on your own. Although I do that now. Back then it was all big stuff. So heavy aerials and arrays. And wasn't until '98 I think I did my next contest from those days, and that was with Paul, G1YYB. I actually forgot we did this contest because we did it in Paul's call sign, and we put the entry in, and I didn't hear anything at all about it again. I think back then there was still this was on the internet. But yeah, we did the car portable backpackers, and I only found out in the 2000s that we'd won that one, which was quite cool. And good thing about going with another op, especially with Paul, is that he would field off all the passers-by asking the questions, what we're doing, etc. That left me free to concentrate on the operating, which is the part I do like the best. And, yeah, so I didn't really do any more contesting from this, but I was doing a bit of computer programming at the time, and Minos was going back then. I think this might be in the 2000s. I wrote a small program, Windows program, for taking an output from Minos and plotting your QSOs so that it would show you your most profitable areas or where you were lacking points or QSOs. And I haven't got any screen grabs or anything like that because that's long gone. But I managed to get a mention on Mike's website. That was my email address was Tenchi. I think Mike thought my surname was Tenchi. I still use that now. And I started writing a actual logging program for Windows. This is a splash screen. And you might recognize a sort of a similar layout. I can't remember whether Mike inspired me or whether we worked on two almost identical parallel planes. I imagine there must have been the inspiration there. But I was working on. I never released it. I think I might have used it. But how do I write this? 2008. So it's going back a bit. I was a bit cutting edge back then. I had back in 2008. I was plotting the QSOs on a map either big map for bigger contests like trophy, or you could do a small map with connecting lines. But in the end, I kind of put that to one side and was fairly inactive and didn't do anything again until Paul, G1YFC again, got a FT857 and started me on HF because we had HF by then. And we did a bit of portable SOTA. And then I became aware of two revelations. This amazing thing, which had appeared since I was last active. I couldn't believe you could get all these bands and 2 meters and 70 cents in such a tiny thing. The smallest thing portable that was in my day was the FT290, which is much bigger than this, and only did 2 meters, as you know. So this was a revelation. I was given one of these by Mike G3LZM, which was very generous of him. And of course, coupled with all this lithium battery technology, I was able to get where I'd always wanted to get, which was the top of the Black Mountains. When we were always operating in the Black Mountains before, we were in a side of the hill spot where west was completely dead to us. We couldn't reach Brecon. We reached East Coast and Europe, but couldn't get Brecon, which is like 12 miles away. It was really shielded. But with these two, I realised I could go backpacking portable and get to my very sought after 800 meet peak. So that was quite exciting for me. All I needed was an antenna, and of course the other great advancement since the days of waiting for the Radcom to come and see the results and how you got on in the contest corner was all the designs that are available on the internet. Scoured all the various options and settled on DK7ZB and built myself a 9-element, specially designed for backpacking. So breaks up into 3 sections. You can see join there. There's the other one. Join there, and 2-part boom support, and quick release elements, so I could pack it all up. And I actually developed with a friend of mine who was a general manager of an injection molding company. It's quite useful. So as always, it's who you know, not what you know. And he molded me some really element mounting plates with special raised areas so they fit to a square boom and keep the elements nice and true and nice and perpendicular to the boom. And that was my first modern Yagi build, and that enabled myself and Paul to get up on the mountains. And this is our first backpackers. I've had to loan Paul the Gore-Tex because he didn't have any Gore-Tex back then, and probably the most essential backpacking equipment there is Gore-Tex jacket and trousers, especially in Wales. And so we're both loaded up with rucksacks full of gear and tent. I got a homemade telescopic mast I made, trying to make it as lightweight as possible. And here's my beam folded up. And Paul's arty shots. Most of the arty shots and the action shots Paul took in this presentation. I don't take many photos when I'm on my own because I'm a bit busy operating. By the time I'm finished, there's only one thing I'm interested in, that's getting back down and going home. So we piled up. We might look happy at the moment, but we generally don't look quite so smiley face when we get to the top of the Black Mountains, I can assure you that. However, when we get there, it is worthwhile, because this is why you can hear us quite well on top of the Black Mountains. That's looking kind of roughly north round to northeast, and you can see there's nothing in the way for miles, absolute miles. There's nothing behind us. The Brecon beacons are slightly higher, but only a little bit, and we can work Echo India off the back. It's absolutely fantastic. I love it up there. And it might look like a nice sunny day there. It must be because I'm in a t-shirt, but we do get the weather. And I have to keep telling myself it's summer up there sometimes with the Gore-Tex and the gloves and the fingers. But obviously, looking at the results that we get and the views, it is worthwhile. And this is inside the tent. Essential contest in nutrition, sugar, keep us going. And me on the probably mid-contest by the looks of it. And trusty 817, Microsoft Surface, which is a cracking little tablet, which is what I'm speaking to you via. Because I've got only thing I've got a camera and a microphone on. The two essentials: Gore-Tex trousers, Gore-Tex jacket, and flask, and the other essential that you must can't go without up in the mountains. Now this is my contest locator map that I've been doing for quite a few people. We used to cross off the squares when we worked them, but we've got them up on Minos now. Back when we started, I don't think Mike had got the square indicator panel set up. Looks like we got one in JM48, which is quite nice. Yeah, it's that's the setup in the tent. LMR 400 into the back of the 817 to the 9 elements and 5 watts, 2.5 actually when we started. Yeah, so Paul made us a video. This is actually 2017 practical wireless contest. Bear in mind that's in June. It's in the height of summer, and it was an absolute blowing hurricane all day. My tent that you saw in the other picture is a 4-season mountaineering tent, and we actually bent both the poles putting that up. The wind was so strong, slightly operator error. We bent the pole, both poles. So as a result, when we did get it up, I had to sit in the uphill corner and prop the corner up with my shoulder while I was operating. So I had 7 hours operating with the tent battering me in the shoulder, and even with the headphones on, I could hear the wind howling through the antenna and the guys. And I kept after asking Paul if everything was okay, make him look out the window, make sure it wasn't blowing down. And it was absolutely didn't let up all day. It was still blowing a hoolie when we set up. And you'll notice in the video when I'm assembling the aerial, the visual aids written onto the boom. You'd be surprised how important something dead simple is to have some sort of visual aid. When you're getting battered by the wind and the cold, I can't even tie a simple clove hitch. The 2 loops, cross them over, put it tight. I've had several goes of doing that. It's unbelievable. So here's a little video. The rest from my voice. Hope it's not too loud. Yeah, so that's what it's like in the summer in Wales, and not long after that, surprisingly, Paul had other interests in on anymore, so I was on my own. So if you saw that picture of the 2 rucksacks and all the gear on the floor in the video there, I had to compress that into 1 rucksack and carry it all myself. So yeah, it's quite a strain. I'm definitely jaded by the time I get to the top with all that gear. But one of the first things I had to do when Paul stopped coming was deal with the fact that there was no Paul to deal with the people on the summit, because I'm on a peak, we get a lot of walkers passing by, and obviously they're interested. They see this, what to them is a massive mast, it's only 4 meters, but you know, to them it's a bit weird, and they're you know, they're interested to know what's going on. Oops. So I made this sign, which I laminated, and I actually made it when Paul was still coming with me, which is why it talks about we. But I left it on there because while I'm on my own, it makes people think that there's more of us in there, just in case. We do get ruffians up there sometimes on scramblers and things. But I pinned this down a few meters from the tent, between the tent and the summit, and I can hear people when I'm getting ready in the tent. I can hear people reading it to the rest of their group, and it's proved invaluable. It really is a useful thing, and it answers everyone's questions before they ask them, really. So that was definitely a success, and it really helps me just once I start contesting. Basically, I don't budge out the hot seat from start to finish. So even in the PW, so I'm sat there in the same place for 7 hours, or 4 hours as it is. So you know, I can't really, I don't like to miss you know, any chance of any QSO. So that was the first thing I had to do to get up there and operate on my own. The second thing was, if you remember in that video, you could see me waving to Paul, sort of gesticulating, come closer. We couldn't communicate by voice then, and we're trying to get that mast is really skinny, lightweight thing, 20 millimeter top section. So that's why it's got so many guys on it, to keep it from being broken in the wind. And to save weight, then there was no sliding buckle, so we had to put 2 pegs in, and then check it from 90 degrees and see if it was bent or not. So that's me telling Paul, bring the guy closer so I can take in some slack. And obviously on my own I couldn't do that, so I had to ditch that, and I take a single 4 meter section of 1.5 pole now, and I can put that up on my own, and it's actually a lot quicker. I've got myself adjusting guys, you can see there, normal sliding buckles, and more self-sufficient. Didn't have Paul to hold the mast up anymore, so I've had to employ a multi-purpose stand to prop up the mast while I'm working on it. And that's actually an arty one that I did take myself, looking out the window. You see the wind coming from the unusual direction. Usually the prevailing wind is from the west, which is over behind the tent. The wind was coming from the east. So I've got all the rocks holding the tent down, and bungees trying to keep some tension on the opening, so I can turn the mast. So it's pretty windy very often up there. We get the beautiful days obviously as well, but it's worth it for the results. Done quite well up there. 4 years on the trot. Managed to take first, which I'm really pleased with. I'm in the Practice and in the backpackers. Where are we? Down here. I'm quite pleased with that. We, as I say, I go for it and give it all of my best. Although we have a laugh. Obviously, don't have a laugh kind of with Paul anymore on my own, but we do enjoy it, and this is a QSO that Paul was recording at the time. He was just recording a session, and this QSO I still find quite amusing now. So hopefully, you can use this.
Many thanks. You are the contest of Whiskey 1 Yankee Bravo Bravo Portable. Ending with Tango Uniform X-ray Portable.
Oh, sorry.
Call again. Okay, we'll just swing the beam. We'll just swing the beam and see if we can find you. We've got just about. Just do it again. Right.
Uniform 3, Tango Uniform X-ray Portable. GU goes Uniform 3, Tango Uniform X-ray Portable. Over.
Roger. No need to try. You're 59007. In Italy, Oscar 81 Kilo Whiskey, 81 Kilowatt Watson. And my postcode November for Pop.
Yes, please. Good afternoon, many thanks for public Southbound 002 in India, November 89 Victor Radio, IM 89VR, postcode Golf Yankee G1, over.
Roger. I just 100% confirm I've not been dyslexic. GU3 Tango Uniform X-ray Portable, was it? Okay, many thanks for that. That's 73. You were right inside the beam, by the way, before. Pretty good going. Okay, many thanks. Here is a contest of Whiskey 1 Yankee Bravo Bravo Portable.
Yeah, so that shows what it's like receiving that on top of the Blackies. Hell of a difference. Channel iron's absolutely blasting in, which is to be expected. Basically, apart from the curvature, it's almost line of sight for us. So it's we enjoy the takeoff. So that's good fun. Parallel to those, in fact, this was before the backpackers. This was my my first ever UK activity contest, which I did from a local lower Welsh site. Dave ASR, this is the alternative we were talking about, up the road by Crossash. And I took the 9LE up to see if it worked, basically. So I'm came third in the UK activity in that one. My first ever one, first contest since the '98 contest, I believe. So I was quite pleased to come third on 5 watts. A bit rusty, but got there. And of course, the the activity was, for a 2.5-hour contest, that it kind of, I was hooked. So, this is basically the story of, or the beginning of the UK activity story for me and the Hereford Club, really, because they weren't actually taking part then. So I decided that I was going to do more of these, and set myself a lash up car portable. So I got my backpacking mast in a rotator that I bought, and the rotator just screwed to a metal plate pegged in the ground. And got the 817 SOTA batteries, inverter for the rotator, and this is where you usually work me if you're working from IO82 London Boston, and I was quite pleased to win that one. Of course, it's always more fun when you're winning. So that was it, definitely hooked. And yeah, good fun. Next slide actually shows what can be done with just 5 watts on a decent beam and good takeoff. This is a QSO that Paul recorded when I was, I think it's Phil M0NVS portable. Just a quick QSO, complete with stupid faces that apparently I pull when I'm operating, but I didn't realise.
G1YYB portable 509+++4064. Italy Oscar 91 Lima Tango.
Okay, many thanks. You are 59049 59049 in Italy Oscar 82 London Baker.
Right, thank you very much, good luck.
Many thanks, then. Three.
Yes, that's my my portable operating table I use in the car, by the way. Piece of wood. I don't think I've got them on there actually. I've got 3D printed pegs now that fit in the sockets for the headrest. So that's what I was using then. I still use the table now, and I decided after that let's get past that. I needed a drive-on base, and I investigated all the commercial and available options, and none of them really floated my boat. I didn't really do what I wanted them to do. So I decided the only way forward was to design my own. So I designed basically a tilting cage to support the mast. It would lock into place. This is a kind of a prototype design. I didn't actually go with this in the end. I came up with something better. Designed it in 3D CAD, and then all I needed to do was learn to weld, buy a welder, buy a welding table, buy a chop saw, and make one. So that's what I did next. And, a couple of days off work on the weekend, I cut up a load of steel, stuck it together in bits. There's no close-up to the welding, there, thank God. I'm definitely not a welder, but it's still going. I've been using it for 4 or 5 years. And that's my drive-on base that I use in all the UK activity contests. There's the finished article, and not too dissimilar from the 3D CAD. You may have seen, those of you on the Facebook contest groups, they've seen Mark Dutton M0UOK and Ian Miles G0CNM. They've got some black ones. Mark based his on this one for mine. So the UK activity story began, and the first year, there's, where am I? There's Hereford down there in 68th place. That's basically just myself. And then towards the end of the year, I think Matt G8XYJ started putting some scores in. Possibly Tris M0VXX. May have put 1 score or so in. But basically, it's just me on 2 meters. And we're down there in 68th place. So, but what I did do was alert the local club that there was contesting going on, and they really mentioned it in the meetings. They've got some fantastic support from the club members. And next year there's a different story. We've got 26 members entering on just on 2 meters, and we entered all the bands, even the microwaves. That was mostly Dave and LGS and DJ. I think XYJ as well. And Dave was in the chat. OYX, I think he was in the microwave. We got up to 2nd place, and it was a stirring effort from all the club members. We got G4 FAD. Rich doesn't do sideband. Didn't even have a microphone plugged into any of his radios, and we managed to persuade him to go on sideband. And it was a bit alien to him, but he did quite well. We've got several members in that list who probably wouldn't mind me, or wouldn't disagree that they're no longer spring chickens, but they're out and they're out portable, some of the guys. So a stirring effort. Really impressed with the take-up of the club. Couldn't ask for better support. That was my first year in full year in the 144 UK activity. Wasn't doing the other bands then, I don't think. I was only planning to do 2 meters as it turned out. And we've got a couple of guys down here only turned up once or twice, but I always tell them that every point counts. And it really is true that literally every person in the club can make a difference. Just to show you how close it could be, or was, this was 2017 77s UK activity, AL section, which I entered. I didn't have an antenna. I still don't actually have my own antenna. I've got some 19 elements up there waiting to be finished. But I borrowed a 19 elements off Craig BUL, and I must have fluked it the first month by winning. But the next few months, I did okay, but I couldn't get to the top, and the aerial just didn't feel right. And Craig, when he loaned it me, said, "This is a contest winning aerial. You'll do well with this." But it just didn't feel right. Just didn't seem to be performing how I thought it should do. And one day, literally in the shower, pondering it, I had a eureka moment. I was using the 77s antenna on the same mast that I used for the 2 meter and the 4 meter, 2 meter and the 6 meter antennas. And they have a big, relative to 77s, they have a big fixed bracket on them, and some bolts that stick out each side for the side bracing on the 6 meter beam. And it dawned on me that those bolts were practically a full element length on 77s. And there's a big chunk of metal that's right in the capture area of the 77s antenna. So you can work out from that table which month that dawned on me, and which month I started taking a different pole, especially for 77s. So after that dawned on me, the aerial suddenly got a new lease of life. I got Craig M0BOL to simulate it, and he reckoned I was losing 3 dB off the front lobe and checking it out the back, which is what, and from my size out the back is nothing. There's nothing there. So I was throwing away half my radiation. So anyway, long story short, I managed to catch Gavina, M0GAV, sorry, and I beat him by 3 points, 3 whole points over 12 months. So every point literally does count. So it's well worth every member putting their score in. Yeah, so that's basically where we're up to today, pretty much. I think that's the end of my slides. The end. Apologies if I waffled on a bit, but I try to keep it as brief as possible. And well, as you know, once a green light goes, I'm quite enthusiastic, and definitely the volume goes up on the microphone a bit, 6 or 8 dB in voice power. So I think that's pretty much the end of my monologue, guys. Over to Phil.
Thanks very much, Steve. That was really fascinating and a great story. I'm sure there's some questions for you. Anybody want to sort of kick off and ask Steve a question? Well, let me start, Steve. Steve, you obviously got a superb site there. Is the height most important, or do you think the takeoff is most important?
Personally, I think takeoff. The 82LB site that I use is rubbish west, and is literally rubbish west. So I pitch up. You can see from the photos of my setup in the car. The photo of the 817 in the car is basically kind of northeast. So where I pitch up, I've got ground fall from north round to east, pretty much, which is where most of the activity is for me. And I am a massive believer in ground gain. And the photos up on the summit, we don't go on the actual highest point, which is the cairn. I pitch up right on the edge, although to be fair, it's only a few feet lower. I'm talking like 3 feet lower. But I go for ground fall. The mast on top of the Black Mountains, when I pitch that, the downhill guy is literally lower than the base of the mast. I'm right on the edge. I'm on the first patch of grass that's not leaning too much for me to actually operate on. So I'm pitch right on the northeast corner of the summit, and I think it's ground fall. The grounds from my Welsh site falls to 1,200 feet, and oh yeah, I can turn that off now, can't I? Oh, you turned it off. That's cool. Yeah, the ground falls for 1,200 feet, and it's got the double advantage of being in a high spot, and I can see most things. I plotted the Haywares. What's it called? Hey, what's that? And there are some points on that the 360 plot that you can see line of sight for 278 kilometers, something like that, and that's including the curvature. So I think takeoff first, and a good line of sight is secondary, I think. Although there are people who contradict that. There's CLA and the guys over in J001 and 02 who are like 6 feet above sea level and kicking butt as well. So it's but I do like the takeoff.
Okay. Thanks. Any other questions for Steve at all?
How do you find that LNR 400 for portable, Steve? Does it stand up to the rigors of being bent and twisted enough?
Well, yeah, I've used the same piece of coax. The coax I use now for UK activity was the first piece of coax I cut for the backpackers, and I started using it for UK activity as well. And then when I got the 77s, at first I thought when I was saying about the aerial didn't appear to be performing correctly, I thought it was a coax. I thought, okay, maybe the coax is wearing out. So I made a new piece of coax for 77s. It made no difference at all. So that became my my best, if you like. And I use that for the backpackers. In fact, I've been using it at home now since the lockdown for HF. But the original piece of LMR 400s I'm still using now. So I've been using it in the backpackers for a couple of years, and the UK activities since 2016. It's the same piece. So yeah, I've been pretty pleased with it. If you've noticed in the video, I coil it up in big coils, and I kind of reel it up in its own form, rather than kind of, I don't wind it around my arm or anything like that. So I look after it, and I keep rubber caps. In fact, I keep these rubber caps on the ends of the coax. I believe in keeping everything curved here, and no, I really like it. And one thing I will say about it, because it's a solid aluminium core, copper plated, when you pick it up, Paul was, I made Paul carry it in the backpackers, but he picked it up and he was shocked at the lightness of it. It's a bit like picking up a titanium fork. You think you're picking up steel, and you pick up some titanium, and it feels like a plastic spoon. And the LMR is like that. It's really light. It's I reckon it's about half the weight of normal sort of 213 Westflex. I love it. It's a real good cable. I've bought 200 reel drums and use it for all my phasing harnesses as well. So it's good stuff.
Good, thanks.
Any other questions for Steve at all?
Yeah, can I just say sorry, Steve, that I was so late. I penciled it in, but the pencil sort of must have gone out, and I was just on the radio to try and talk to Roger, and he said, "Oh no, Roger said there's a Zoom meeting on tonight, and you couldn't make it." And I suddenly thought, hello, I've forgotten all about this. So no offense, Steve, I'm really sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem.
Look, are you going to put is it going to be available to listen to at another time, Phil?
It is. We're recording it, Vic. Yeah, we're recording it. So
yeah, so perhaps I can catch up with it when
Okay.
you're not around, Steve.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem. As long as we get a QSO in the end, I don't mind when you call in.
That's right. Any other questions, Steve, at all?
Steve, you're quite a builder of things, and I know you do quite a lot of 3D printing. Any sort of highlights of what you've done and tips for doing 3D printing?
Yeah, honestly, 3D printing is absolutely amazing. In fact, I do so much 3D printing now. It's unbelievable. And so what I've got here is I've got end connector boxes. So this is going to be where my end connector is going to fit into an antenna. And the DK7 ZB match goes from that into this dipole box, custom built dipole box. I'll show you. Integral clamps for holding the halves of the elements together. You can printed a soldering jig, so when I solder up the boxes, I can access it without melting inside of the boxes.
Are they okay not being screened, Steve?
These are, yeah, because it's dropped the lid. Yeah, for this particular this design of antenna, yeah, they definitely don't want to be screened, I don't think. As you can see, I don't think you see, I've got, no, you can't. bunch of dipoles and parasitics ready to go. These are all 77s. They were supposed to be finished, and I was going to be using them in the 77s AFS, but that's not going to be happening now.
So do you print the fixings for affixing the elements onto the booms?
I have done that as well. Where's the bag of those? Here we go. It's all here. So I designed my own. You know, most people use the spout or staff, whatever you call them. This is basically my version of that, which is a similar thing, 2-part. It's got recesses where I've fixed nuts into it. But the difference being on these is, you can see it sits on top of a square boom, and it means that I know that they're perpendicular to the boom. And also, because I 3D CAD the whole thing, and set them all so that I know that I've got a bag here. This is the half I haven't fitted yet.
And in those cases, the nuts are within the plastic because that's been 3D printed on top of the nut.
No, what I do is I just print a hexagon orifice, and I pull it in with a screw, and it's a snug fit, and then it's like captive then.
Right.
And I screw in through the bottom of the boom. It means I can keep the elements, the parasitic elements, in exactly the same plane relative to the boom as the driven. So I know everything's true. I guess I call it attention to detail. Other people might call it anal. But I like all my elements to be dead straight. I like them all to be perfectly parallel to each other, perpendicular to the boom, and exactly in the same plane. I try to make the beam electrically as close to the theoretical design as possible, and try and make it as good as possible. And I think every little helps. If you get a 0.1 of a dB here and 0.1 of a dB there, it can't do you any harm, and it may do you some good. But the 3D printer itself is fantastic. I print drilling jigs as well. So I got those element mounts I just showed you, but I've also 3D printed a drilling jig, which I can align with a scribe line and just drill pilot holes in, so I know that all the elements are exactly drilled in the right place along the boom. I have put a page on my website about 3D printers. I call it the new sliced bread, because I think when people say something's better than sliced bread, they're going to have to stop moving their goalposts. It really should be when something's better than a 3D printer, because I think they are absolutely fantastic. It takes a bit of getting used to. You've got to set them up, and you've got to you can't just design something and throw it on the printer and it's going to come out working. You've got to consider how it can be printed, because it's laid down layer at a time. And in the same way as you wouldn't build a scaffold, you wouldn't cut a scaffold plank with the grain going across it, because you just tread on it and it'll snap in the middle. So you've got to think the same sort of mindset when you're doing the printing, where the layer is going to be. So I've got I print these. These are just mask clamps. I put a bolt through them, and I think this is this is a spare pair of my quick release ones that I use on the backpacking. And I put a push bike quick release lever, off the wheel of a bike, so I can quickly lock it or unlock it, turn the beam, lock it again. And I 3D print these, and the layers go, well, you can see the layers. I printed that way with bolts going through here. The bolts are pressing layers together, so it makes it inherently strong. So they're they're fantastic. You want something, and if you've got CAD ability, and you can get free CAD. There's all sorts of free CAD packages. I'm spoiled because I've got SolidWorks. I've been using SolidWorks since 2000.
Steve, just a quick one in
How
regards
big
of
is
the.
your printer? How big is your printer, Steve?
Mine's an Ender 5, which gives you so this is the print. This is a print bed. So that's this is the magnetic one that came with it. So that's the size that I could print, and I can go 300 millimeters high. But you don't want to be printing too. It does take a long time to print some of these things. So
and you can't, and you now can't have a holiday while it's printing, can you?
Well, you can leave it going. I've got you can get a Raspberry Pi. You can use Raspberry Pi and get a special 3D printing operating system on it, and I've got a web camera on it, and I can set it off printing, and I could technically, if it was a really long print, I could go to work and I could keep an eye on it from work if I wanted to. I don't normally do that. But just to give you an idea, I mean, you can get faster printers when you can print faster, but I'd rather stick with what works. So I've got those two pieces there, which are quite small. That's for one element. That takes about an hour to print that, and I'm making 4 by 19, so it doesn't take long to work out how long that's going to take me to print.
You print them in a matrix then, Steve, sort of 4 by 4 or something like that?
I printed 6 at a time at those. I don't like printing too many things for too long, because if it does go wrong, you lose a lot of hours. The dipole boxes that I showed you before, I print those one at a time, and they take about 4.5 hours for a box. So it's
okay.
It's not a quick process, but you can start a print going, and then you can be drilling the boom or wiring up a driven element. So it's the printer does the work for you. You just come back and you've got some finished parts. You could do a bit of finishing on them. You can see on these, I don't know if you can see, as kind of filing marks where I just sort of finished it off. But I definitely recommend them. They are really, really useful. And good fun. I printed the girlfriend a 6 key hook thing with a novelty thing that she likes. They can do anything you like. They're brilliant.
Very good. Thanks, Steve.
Yes.
Any last question at all, Steve, while we've got him connected, really?
Yeah, I did want to ask him what material you're using to print them: ABS, PLA, PETG. Which one is better? Because for antenna, obviously sitting outdoors, you want probably ABS or something.
Well, I am personally printing with PLA Plus, but I would recommend polycarbonate. All my original printing was done by a friend who had a printer, and he used to do it with ABS, and then he moved to polycarbonate, which is it is stronger. I've got a reel of polycarbonate, but I haven't used it yet. I've been using PLA Plus because it's really, really easy to get on with. But my aerials don't sit out 24/7, so I'm not sure of the longevity of PLA Plus. Some people have left things out in the garden for years. Well, not years now, but a year or so. But it works. It works for me. But I would probably recommend, if you're going to do it and you were looking at putting things up on the house, kind of 24/7, I'd probably go for polycarbonate. ABS is quite good in that you can glue it together with like caustic cement, and it kind of welds it together. And that's what I made my disguised cobweb, which is on the website. That was made in ABS, but I think that's the one that gives off fumes. I'm not sure. But,
Yes, ABS is a fuming one. Yeah.
but polycarbonate is definitely what I would recommend.
Okay. Well, that was kind of an interesting sojourn anyway, really. But it's an interest we've there's a few of us get together on a Friday morning to chat, and we quite often 3D printing comes up, and we look out for the Amazon offers on Black Friday about when printers are available. So three of us have got the same printer, and we've kind of just got into that. Well, let me thank you all for connecting today, but let me thank you, Steve, for a fascinating chat through contesting and telling us how you do what you do, really. It's a bit difficult, to give you sort of appreciation, clapping or whatever, but just thumbs up really from everybody. It's been a really good evening, and thank you very much indeed. Also, thanks to other members of other clubs for connecting, and it's been a delight and a pleasure to welcome you this evening. So all the very best from the Milton Keynes Club.
Yeah, thanks ever so much, guys.
Okay, so we'll stop recording now, and we'll